Yeah, so I'm here with Claudia La Rocco, and in your home
Yes.
in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I'm Melissa Staiger, and I'm really happy to be here. I've known Claudia for a while, and recently just read your new novel,
Hmm.
and was really blown away by it.
Thank you. I'm
And
so glad.
oh my gosh, it's a must read. Must read. So juicy. Um, and I wanted, we were just speaking a few minutes ago about the title.
Hmm.
Could you go into a little bit about the title of it?
Yeah. So it's called Petite Cadeau, and it's from Lolita, which I didn't know originally when I chose that title. I chose it because a friend of mine, Jennifer Lacey, she's a fantastic choreographer and dancer, and a couple of years ago she was doing this piece that the piece always included that somebody from the audience would come up and have this sort of guest moment. And we were both at this festival, Impulse Tanz in Vienna, and she asked if I would be her guest for one night. Can hear my cat racing back and forth downstairs. Um, and I, of course, said yes because I adore her work. And she said, oh, we can offer you a petite cadeau, or, a little bit of money for it. Um, and then I was thinking about titles for this book, and I just kept thinking about that title. And I think originally the idea of the novel was that it was going to be each time it was read, it would be read for an audience of one. There's still some of that, but the idea originally was that it would be only that. And so I was thinking about like a little gift, that you give someone. And then when I was talking to her about it, she's like, well, it's from Lolita, of course. And then I went back and looked at the book, and this book, the book that I wrote deals a lot with power and control, as it is either given or obliterated or made through sex. And of course, Lolita asking for her petite cadeau made total sense for the title. So
That's really,
yeah,
really great.
yeah.
And one of the parts that I really liked in the story was with your main character, whose name kind of keeps changing,
Yes.
which I loved. That the fact that she kind of didn't have a name, that it was always the next encounter with somebody or a robot or alien,
Mm-hmm.
the name would change. And could you speak more about that?
Yeah, yeah. I was getting. I think I've been the last few years. I mean, I grew up reading science fiction and comics. And I guess apparently I was talking to somebody about this thing that I'd written, and I was like, oh yeah, it's sci-fi, and they're like, oh well, everyone's doing a sci-fi novel now. So I guess I'm in fashion, for good and for bad. But I have for a long time wanted to. I really love the genre, but I also think so much of the writing in it is so silly, and it's so much of the writing is bad, and that's what's great as well about it. I mean, like what you can get away with. And I was thinking about, so I was thinking about using sort of the tropes and cliches and rules of a sci-fi novel, but also messing with them, and because my background is in poetry, and thinking about how those two forms could collide. I mean, which of course they've done. Many authors have done that. And I think there was something about, I don't know, just something about avatars, and I think that's something that everyone, or a lot of people, are thinking about right now. That it's been years now that we've all had avatars of ourselves in various ways in social media, or just these personas that we take on and off. And I mean, people do that anyway,
Yeah.
without technology, but technology speeds it up, and that we are. I feel like in the last few years, it's become increasingly common for the things that were sci-fi, apocalyptic, futurist when I was a kid.
Yeah.
are just here now,
Yes.
in these ways that are both really scary, you know, like drones and surveillance, and then also in ways that are so banal. And so I think I was thinking about all of those things and about a character who is born as that. You know, she's created as an avatar for somebody, and as a way for a human to continue living. So she is somebody else's immortality,
Yeah.
but then she's also her own, or she's trying to be her own thing. And so the name, I think maybe when we first meet her, I don't think we learn her name for a while, but then when we do, it's like, it's as a version of something. She's Olivia 8, you know. So this idea that she's not, you know, she's not an original, which I think is also something that so many, like this, you know, the modernist idea of make it new is like, we're not in that territory anymore, and we haven't been for a long time, but there's, at the same time, there is still this weird, like, leftover pressure for us to make it new, even though, like, how do we do that? So I think all of that stuff is in there.
Olivia 8. Like,
Yeah.
She's not new.
She's not
an
new.
Updated version of the.
Yeah.
Wow. And you know, like we were kind of talking a little bit about the sex in the novel and how, you were talking a little bit about like Lolita and, you know, this kind of, I don't know if that has anything to do other than the title or the words, but you know, it definitely has this raw, sexual, powerful energy, and I enjoyed it.
Good.
And also, it kind of felt like it was like teetering on, like, you know, she's not a prostitute, but she's a robot, but you know, kind of these emotions of like, well, that just happened, you know, when she's kind of talking. You were talking a little bit about the elusive quality of like when she knew something or when she was programmed to know something versus not know something.
Right. That sex is just really, it's innate to her somehow. Like it's just in her wiring.
Yeah.
And also a certain violence, and that she, you know, when we first see her, I think there's this idea that maybe she's all alone, but of course there are other avatars out there who are programmed in different ways. I think, well, so me writing explicit sex scenes started when I was, it started with Jonathan Franzen, that irritating man. I was reading one of his essays, and I don't know, I think like a lot of people, and maybe especially a lot of female readers, I'm pretty irritated with his handling of gender. But I also, you know, there's a lot that I really like in his writing and the craft of it. But there was a certain point, I don't remember what he was writing about. It was an essay either about like, you know, about sexuality in books, or maybe it was, you know, really dealing more explicitly with porn, but or maybe erotica. He was saying, there's this line in which he says like the more explicit the sex scene in a book, the more it like begs to be excised, the more you should take it out. I'm butchering that, but essentially like that it's embarrassing and it doesn't work and it needs to go. Somehow like you can only deal with it if you, like, it seems like a very New England thing, like, oh, if it happens in the other room behind closed doors and you like can, you know, sort of suggest it's happening.
Yeah.
And it seemed completely predictable that he would write something like that, and also just such a silly cop-out, because there are so many people, you know, who've written about sex like in such fantastic ways, really explicit sex. And so I was thinking, but it's not something I've done. I mean, my writing has been, you know, this is my first novel, and it's the first time since I was writing really, really bad short stories, like, in college and right out of college that I'm dealing with narrative and character and plot development. I've been in the poetry and criticism and essay world for a long time. So it just seemed like an interesting challenge. Could I do that? And could I write scenes that would sort of be on some line between some interesting collision between erotic and satisfying to read, but also embarrassing and also political and maybe kind of icky, like what is happening and what are the power dynamics behind this character who's female but isn't a woman. It's not. She's not human, and she is, depending on where we are in the book, she's either really, she's helpless, or she's really using sex to get what she wants, or she's doing both, or I don't know. I think it's just it's territory we're all or waters we're all swimming in.
Yes.
And I thought I would see if I could sink or swim. So
swim. You swam.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. And then also, there's different variations of this novel. And one I just got to see, which was really great. And you said it was by Badlands Incorporated, is it?
Unlimited. Badlands Unlimited. Yeah.
Unlimited. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was offered, this book came about because I was offered a commission by the Chocolate Factory Theater, which is fantastic interdisciplinary space in Long Island City. It's one of my favorite spaces. And I was so thrilled when the artistic director, Brian Rogers, invited me to do something. But I also, because I've worked for years as a dance critic and writing about dance and theater and performance, I didn't, and there are figures, who have gone from being critics to then they are dramaturgs, to then they collaborate, to then they're like, oh, now I'm a choreographer, now I direct. And I did not want to do that, and I do not, that is not territory I would ever claim, because I have so much respect for that art form. And so when Brian invited me to do something, I thought I could only do something if I wasn't like putting on a show, because there are so many other artists who I would want to see put on a show before me. So I thought, but I did think that I could ask the theater to publish something of mine, and obviously, like when a publishing house, publishes your book, that's a very, there are different ways it can be done, but there are certain procedures, and it has ways of going that we all know. But I was thinking, what would happen? What would it be for a theater to publish a book? Not as like a conceptual gag, but like really, what would that mean in the sort of confines of how they do business? So what I came up with is that the book will be published December 9th through 12th, and it will be published as both a hard copy of one, so it's an edition of one that the Chocolate Factory will get and will have to do with what they will. But then from the 9th to the 12th, it will be published also as a live edition. Mm-hmm. So on the 9th and the 10th, I'm doing solo readings by appointment only for anybody who wants to be read to. So I will read to them from the book. And then the 11th and the 12th, I've asked all of these different artists to be readers. And so I sort of invited them and gave them the pages that they're responsible for, but after that I'm not saying, there are no controls on them in terms of you have to read it this way, or you have to convey this, or, it has to fit into this format, beyond logistical and budgetary constraints. So the artists, so Badlands Unlimited, I obviously have a history with them because Badlands published my first book, and Yes, it's this one. We're totally professional.
Yeah, we are.
And I love working with them. It's a really small press that Paul Chan founded, but he's working with this group of artists. They're just really delightful, and they all make such interesting stuff in their own right. And so I asked them, as a collective, if they would be one of the readers. So they made this digital piece, which is up on YouTube now, and so that's one of the readings. And it will also be in the space as an installation view in the Chocolate Factory. And then, other artists, Rashawn Mitchell, who is a choreographer and a dancer, is going to do a reading in his form. Philip Greenleaf, who's a musician and composer, will read in his form. And everybody will, these artists will be as abstract or as representational as they want, and can be very explicitly dealing with the material, but they can also be dealing with it in completely oblique ways, or both. And so there's nine artists in addition to myself who are responsible for the publication of the book. So
That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm really just I'm really dazzled and humbled that they all said yes, because they're all artists who I adore. I love what they make, and I really like them as people. And I figured that even if the book, what's on the page didn't work, that they would do good things. So early on, I was like, if I write a terrible book, at least Rashawn will make a beautiful movement, something in response to it. Yeah.
I'm sure there's some kind of energy exchange. They wouldn't have said yes if you weren't so talented. So
that's nice of you to say.
But I just want to thank you. I think your cat is asleep and purring on my lap right now. So sweet. And
it's good for warmth.
Oh my gosh, so warm. Thank you so much, Claudia, for doing this interview.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I think this is such a great series that you're doing. I'm honored to be part of it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so we'll definitely put all the links below all for everything you just mentioned. And buy her new book.